All right. Well, welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, first one of the new year, 2023. So thrilled to be here, thrilled to be in a new year and watching all the great things that everybody's going to do in this group this year. So thanks again for being here. So the topic tonight was get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I hope you take that to heart immediately because maybe I'm going to create a little discomfort in tonight's message. So time to get comfortable right away. All right. So little story about myself when I was younger. When I say younger, probably ages 5 through 13. And I was a really good student. I went to private school. I lived with my mom, and she was able to, I don't know how, afford to send me to private school. I know we didn't have much else outside of that. Oftentimes we got food from the church, but me going to private school was a priority for her. And the education that I received there was far better than what my friends and family members were receiving in the public school. And I didn't realize this until I turned to the age of 13 and I was able to make the decision on whether I'd live with my mom or live with my dad. And I decided that I would live with my dad because, well, he had 2 stepsons, which I considered my brothers from as long as I could remember. And I thought how great it would be to have a couple brothers. And this story isn't about my brothers and my family. What it's about is what I lost along the way, or what I didn't know I lost. And that's going to be tonight's message. So when I moved in with my dad and my 2 great brothers, we had a wonderful time. We did everything together, of course, fought and played sports and did all those other things. But what we didn't do is focus on our grades. Both of my stepbrothers were lucky to get D's and C's, and a lot of times they received F's. And so here I was, a straight A student, prior to living with my dad, landing in a house where if I were going to get a C, that would be more than acceptable. Actually, that would be above par for the household I lived in. So let's put that story aside for a few minutes because I want to come back to it. I want to tell you what I didn't know I needed and what I didn't develop and what I wish I had learned. Okay? So put it aside. Most people think that others, and when I say others, successful people, have this skill. And that skill is discipline. Rachel, if you listen to Andy Frisella this week, you know where I'm heading with this. The skill is discipline, okay? We look around and we think, oh, they have what I don't have, and that's their ability to succeed. They have something called discipline. Well, guess what? Discipline isn't a skill that you're born with. It's not just something that you're fortunate enough to have. Discipline is a skill that is learned through practiced behavior. And this is what I want to talk about tonight. Because I've said before, I don't want members in the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. And whether you're listening on January 2nd, 2023, or June 1st, 2023, or September, or December 31st, 2023, I don't want members. I want participants. I want people that are willing to go the extra mile and develop the skill of discipline. Okay? Starting today, start thinking about how you're going to develop the skill of discipline. Not tomorrow, right now when we get off this call. Look, we all have New Year's resolutions. Okay? Today's the day. I'm going to get after it. I know I started 75 hard today again. Rachel's been on it for 6 days. Good job, Rachel. I know my wife started it today. And the reason why I started that again today is that I was craving the discipline that I've received from that program. Now, knowing so many people use the new year as an excuse to have a resolution, I'm going to call BS on that now. Okay? Put your resolution aside. Because if you're the type of person that has a resolution and 3 days from now your buddies want to go out and party and drink beer, or you want to go off and snowmobile, or you want to go on another vacation, or whatever that looks like for you, whatever those excuses have been in the past, you're just going to be in the same place next year that you're at today. the same place. So think about how many times, how many years you've had a resolution where you said, I'm going to do this, but yet you're not doing it, or you never did it, or you haven't achieved what you wrote down. Okay, so let's put the resolutions aside. Let's focus on the one thing that's going to help you achieve what it is you want, and that's discipline. Okay. And again, I say you think that you lack those skills necessary to do anything about it. And, we have our buddies show up, that human element in our life, and say, don't worry about that. Let's go do this, right? I'll use 75 hard as an example because we use it often. I heard somebody say the other day, well, I'll never do 75 hard because, if my buddies show up after I've done 30 days and they want to grab a beer and I haven't seen them for a few months, I'm going to grab a beer with them. Well, why? You've lacked the discipline to say no, or the strength to say, look, guys, I want to hang out with you, but I've got these goals over here, and that beer with you guys is going to derail what my goals are, or who I want to be, or what I'm hoping for. Okay. Going back to my story about my childhood grades, what I realized is that my parents didn't instill in me the discipline to maintain my straight A grade point average. They allowed me to sink to the level of my brothers for whatever reason. And by the way, don't get me wrong, both my brothers are extremely successful in the career paths that they've taken and what they're doing. Some bumps along the way. But my parents allowed me not to have any discipline. And when I look back on it, I thought, wow, wouldn't it have been great if they instilled upon me that skill set to continue getting good grades, to study, to utilize the study patterns that I had the first 8 years of going to school instead of discarding them, right? And that brings me into another topic about discipline. You can learn how to be disciplined, but you can lose it faster than it took you to learn it. In class today, we recapped our year. A class, I'm talking about the young entrepreneurs curriculum that we teach at the high school. We were talking about customer service, right? It takes you longer to get a good customer than it takes you to lose that customer, right? One bad customer experience, you could lose that customer. Well, discipline's the same way. And I'll be my own guinea pig. As everybody knows, I jumped on 75 hard. I had a great run. I finished on December 6th, 7th, somewhere around there. Well, that was some good discipline. I had better results on that 75 hard program than I've ever had. But I promise you, within a couple short weeks, I lost the discipline. I was hitting the cupboard, grabbing the cookies, having that nightly glass of wine or whiskey or whatever it looked like. And if you were fortunate enough to be at my house on New Year's Eve, you would know that I'm looking at Palin's name. You know that I overserved myself New Year's Eve, right? Intentionally, I guess, right? I lost all that discipline. 75 days of strength and discipline I lost in a couple short weeks because I was willing to make bad choices to continue doing what I thought I needed to do. So what's happened to me now, though, is I've craved that discipline back in my life. And what I realized, the more that I get into these programs, the more that I focus on what that feels like, the more I want the satisfaction of being disciplined. So what I'm telling you, living my own life and proof for you, is that once you've learned how to add discipline to your life on a regular basis to achieve the goals that you want to achieve, it gets easier and you're going to see real results, right? I saw results across the board. I posted for the first time ever my physical results on Instagram, and I didn't do it for my own reason. I didn't do it to get some kudos for how I looked. I did it because I wanted people to see really the transformation I made in my physical appearance, but really my body gestures, and specifically the confidence. If you looked at my first picture, that was somebody that didn't want to be up at 5 a.m. That didn't feel good about how I looked, just took the shot in the bathroom as soon as I could get it done, compared to my last shot was a guy that felt confident about how he looked, how he felt, the strength that he gained, his ability to get up at 5 a.m., If you notice, I was in the gym taking the picture. I looked better. I was standing up straight, all because I developed the discipline over those 75 days to be that person. And I remembered what it felt like in past years. Now, to give you an example of where that applied in my business life is, part of 75 Hard, you're developing routines, you're developing schedules, you're developing habits and traits. And it's hard not to apply that in all areas of your life. And for me, applying that to my workday was natural. And I knew that I didn't want to finish 75 Hard and just look and feel better. I knew I wanted to be more successful in my business. And I will tell you that by practicing, writing down the 5 critical tasks that I've talked about in here so often, that I've asked you to do on numerous occasions, that by doing that, I had the second most successful month of December in my entire career. In my entire career. And it's not because something fortunate, came along and, by luck, I signed the right client. No, it's because I worked it with intentionality towards having the success that I was going after. Not to mention another thing that I've talked about often in here, and that is having faith over fear. Okay. In all transparency, I was losing a client at the end of December. I only maintain 3 top-level clients in my consulting business, which is all the revenue I make. And I was losing a big client, and I was halfway on another one because he was paying half the fees. So really, I'm looking at operating at less than half capacity coming January. And, look, if you own your own business, these are the ebbs and flows of having a business. These are the challenges. These are the struggles, right? And you can crawl in a cave and mope around about it, or you can ramp up your efforts, ramp up your discipline, jump into your business and do the job that you're meant to do. And you can add a whole bunch of faith over fear there. And in my household, money has always been a fear for my wife, and she'll be the first to tell you that. So I'm not giving you a lifelong secret of hers. And halfway through the month, she says, Jim, what are we going to do? Do you have a new client? And I'm telling her, I'm like, look, we've got to have faith in the process. We got to have faith in the work that I'm doing, faith in, everything, the foundational elements of what we're doing. And what happened to me was just before, literally the last day before Christmas break, and I've been working my ass off to, do all the right things. I received a phone call from somebody, and to be fair, I might not have normally picked up the phone, to be honest with you. And I thought, I'm pick up the phone, see what this guy has to say. Usually he kind of talks a lot. And he said, Jim, I need this from you. And this is what we're willing to pay. It was an astronomical number. It was a request out of the blue, something I never, ever expected. And what I realized, and by the way, I was on speakerphone, kids were already in the car being picked up from school. They're like, Daddy, what's that all about? I said, what that's about is putting in the work, being disciplined to receive that call, and being able to deliver on the request of this individual. And the deal got done. And guess what? I could take the rest of the year off, but that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to dig in deeper. I'm going to be more disciplined than I've ever been before, which is why I'm jumping on 75 Hard again today with my wife and working the program. Okay. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the discipline it's going to take to achieve the things that you want to achieve. I want you to go all in like I'm doing, like I've done, like the example I just gave you. Instead of giving up and being worried about what I was going to do, I went all in on the things that I've been building over the last several years in my business. And every single person in here has the capacity to do that. Don't let people derail your plans by creating doubt or saying things that are their own insecurities that they're pushing on you, because you have the skills to be successful. Don't allow that parent situation that I lived through and allow yourself to get C's and D's as being acceptable because the people around you are getting C's and D's. You're capable of getting A's. I want you to supercharge your own discipline. Go all in on this. I want you to get off this call and write down 5 critical tasks for tomorrow and what it feels like to be a different person with the discipline in your mind. You know, I bought this book. It's Discipline Equals Freedom, the field manual from Jocko. You've probably seen it. It's on our website. It's in our library. I picked up this book from Jocko 2 years ago, I think is when it came out. I read it like I'd read any other book. I put 0 weight into the title, Discipline. Okay? I really didn't. I just read it as another book. But as I was reflecting on tonight's call and what I heard Andy Frisella talking about this week, his discussion on discipline, it really resonated with me. I said, holy shit, I bought this book 2 years ago. It's clear as day how important discipline can be in your life, right? And I want to cultivate a high level of discipline in this group. I want it to be discussed more often so that you can understand what that feels like. And by the way, a lot of people in this group, maybe not everybody that's on the call tonight, but I've got a lot of years on many of you in age. I didn't develop this skill of discipline until I was roughly 48 years old. And what's interesting to think about is when I look back on my career, I've had some dumb luck. I've always worked hard, but I realized if I put some discipline to those years, what it might look like today. What would my life look like today if I'd had the discipline that I'm telling you about right now, that I'm asking you to have, that I'm asking you to place a priority on? What would that look like for me today if I'd done that most of my life? So if you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, even if you're in your 40s or 50s, if you can add some discipline to your life now, there's plenty of time to enjoy the fruits of that labor and that new skill that you acquire. And the way that I earned that skill was I went to a physical fitness trainer. His name is Jordan, and he ran a gym, a private gym called Heart Fit in Glendora, California. And I knew heading into my 50s, I wanted to be heart fit because I had 2 babies at the time, and I didn't want to worry about my health. So Jordan started putting me into training to be healthier and fitter, right? And as many of you know, I started racing Spartan, and that was inspired by Jordan. And it was because of the Spartan racing that I developed that discipline to exercise regularly, to do the boring things, to succeed in my Spartan racing, miles after miles after miles. And let me tell you, running 23 miles on a track, high school track, weekend after weekend after weekend, there's nothing more boring than 23 miles on an oval track. Okay, and I'm talking about hours, 4 or 5 hours on the track running in a circle, right? But that was the discipline that it was required to go out and win a Spartan race. I've talked about my success there. At one time, I was 3rd in the world for men over 50 in the Ultra Spartan Racing Series. It didn't come because I had some dumb luck and all of a sudden I was faster than the next guy. It came from hours and hours and hours on the track, developing the discipline I needed to go out and win. And then I got a taste of that. And I started applying that to my business life and what that looked like. I started applying it to my personal life with my wife and my kids. I applied it to my move to Montana, right? Here's what we're going to do. Here's our goals. Here's how we're going to map this out. We're going to focus on these things. Here's what we're going to have when we get there, right? The whole family sat down. Let's have some property. Let's have some horses, right? We just didn't get that. We spent 6 months preparing before we moved, before we left. Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we want when we get there. We applied the same discipline I had in the Spartan racing to our goals and our activities in order to achieve that success, right? So the point is, I want you to stop placing value on what other people are telling you and start placing value on what you want and what will give you the discipline to become that person. Right? If you do the things that we've talked about in the last year, by the way, we are rolling up on a year, Rod. Congratulations. Rachel, congratulations. We're getting close. if you start doing the things that we've laid the foundational elements for, and you apply discipline to those things, you will find equal success in your own lives. And I don't say that lightly. I say that from a place of experience and some of the stories I've shared with you tonight. And there's a lot more to go with that. A lot more. We don't have enough hours on these calls to talk about that, but I will promise you that if you start doing those things, you will see those results. Now, when we look around, a lot of people are complaining about what's happening in the world, right? We went through a pandemic. We feel the oppression from inflation and high prices and all those other things. Well, what are you doing about it? If you can just go and get healthy and develop the discipline to focus on the things that are important for you, you're going to be able to combat the arena around you. And when I say the arena around you, I'm talking about inflation, talking about high prices of gas. I'm not going to worry about gas prices anymore because I'm working my tail off and I'm having success in what I'm doing, right? So gas prices are no longer a factor for me because I've had the discipline to put me in a place so that I don't have to worry about those gas prices, right? So let's think about what your life will look like when you start applying some discipline and start looking to change your world, because by changing your world, it's going to help change the world around you, right? And that's going to be good for all of us. And I'm going to kind of wrap this up a little bit. I'd love to take any questions, or we can equally just shut it down because I want you to think about discipline. With the first time I did 75 hard, and as I just suggested, I already had the physical fitness and the discipline to be in shape the first time I did 75 hard. Yeah, there was some fine tuning there I needed, right? But basically, I'd had the discipline to do the physical side of it. So when somebody asked me, what did you get out of 75 hard? And this is probably the most important message I want you to get out of tonight and what discipline will bring you is what is the story that it's telling the people around you? If you're a parent, what are your kids seeing when you're more disciplined? If you're a spouse, what is your spouse seeing by being more disciplined? If you're an employer, what are your employees seeing? Okay. This is my 5th round of 75 hard. Failed a couple times, succeeded a couple times. Now, my 9-year-old this morning, well, last night, she says, Daddy, I want to get up at 5 with you and work out. Why? Because I'm going to do 75 hard. She's 9. There's not even a 75 hard program for her. I think a gallon of water would probably kill her, right? So my wife and I are talking about how are we going to modify 75 hard so my 9-year-old can do it, right? And by the way, maybe I didn't do the best job, but after 2 weeks of vacation, I tried to wake her up at 5 and she wasn't having any of it, right? But I promise you, when she woke up at 6:30, she was pissed. Mom, Dad, how come you didn't wake me up? I wanted to get my workout in, right? What that tells me is that my kids are paying attention. They're watching what I'm doing. They're hearing what I'm saying. They're learning the discipline that I'm teaching, right? Just by doing. I don't have to talk to them about 75 hard. When they got home from school today, they saw what I was wearing. They said, oh, are you going to go out for your outdoor workout now, Dad? Yep, because I got my workout in earlier. What are we having for dinner tonight? Doubt it's going to be any sugar. Or I don't think you're having any wine, right? Nope, no wine, no sugar. That's because they're watching. So remember, the discipline that you apply to your own life now, regardless of where you're at, your family, your colleagues, your friends, your siblings, your kids are watching. So not only are you going to have the benefit from that, but they're going to have the benefit from that. And everybody wins. And I promise you, we're going to be watching in the syndicate. We're here. Rod and I, Rachel, we've had the discipline to be here for you every single Monday night because it's important to us that you succeed, right? We want to see you guys achieve those goals that you set out to achieve. And I believe that if you start a course of discipline right now, then you're going to achieve those goals. We've talked about 75 hard a lot. It's not a weight loss program. It's a mental strengthening program. And I've preached it since the day I started this. I've preached it for the last 3 years since I discovered it. Millions of people have done it. Millions of people have quit from it. But I will tell you, the program works. It works for a variety of reasons. Jim's on the call, Rachel's on the call. They've both succeeded. They've done it. And I would encourage everybody to try it and do it. Do it with your whole heart. Because if you don't, if you start it and you quit, and you start and you quit, you will develop a habit of quitting. And that's the worst habit of all. And that's the habit that we don't want to teach here, right? The habit of quitting. So set out to do something different. Set out to figure out how you're going to get discipline in your life. Apply it. It's my word for the year. I was taught that today in school. One of the high school students said that's what they do on New Year's, is they pick a word for the year. My word for the year is going to be discipline, and I'm going to be checking in often on it. And you're going to be able to follow my story. And the reason why, by the way, that Rod and I and Rachel tell our success stories, we don't want the kudos from y'all in here. Okay? We really don't. What we want you to see is that we're normal, everyday people like you that have found success, have learned from our mistakes, and we'd love to help you so that you don't make the same mistakes, so that you can fast track it. Just like I wish my parents would have held me accountable to better grades in high school, we want to hold you accountable to a better life of living discipline in what you're doing, right? All right. I'm going to close my statements with, I was asked the other day, what is my New Year's goal? What are you going to do this new year, right? This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to tell you where the inspiration came from. I read a book called Gospel Patrons, and it's on our website. It's the bright Tiffany blue book, if you don't remember the title when you get on our library. It's called Gospel Patrons, and it's about patrons that have historically donated significant amount of money to forwarding the gospel in civilization. Dates back to the 1500s when the first wealthy individual funded the Bible to be converted from Hebrew to English so more people can understand it. Well, within the Gospel Patrons Society, there's a person by the name of David Green. David Green started Hobby Lobby with $600 back in the 70s. $600 that he borrowed to start Hobby Lobby. And they slowly found success in Hobby Lobby. And they went through some tough times. They went through the 80s where they had to borrow money and get out of debt, but they continued on. And one of the things that they've always believed in is tithing a percentage of their profits. And they started out with 10%. If you're a churchgoer or a believer, you know, God talks about giving 10%. And that's what they started doing. Well, as they moved on, they started donating a little bit more. They had some long-term debt that they finally paid off, and they had some extra money. And they said, well, what are we going to do with that money now? Well, let's just give it. Let's just give it away, right? So as they found more money, they began to give more away. Well, guess what? Hobby Lobby is an $8 billion a year profit center, and they give away 50%. 50%. That's $4 billion to charitable giving every single year. And Hobby Lobby just had their most successful year last year, post-COVID, because they've always done the right thing. They've always given. And what David Green said in an interview that I heard that I was inspired by is he says, we don't give to get. We get so that we can give. So my goal for 2023 is to double my giving. Everything that I gave last year, I want to double that. And what's funny about that is as we wrapped up the year, I doubled what I gave last year at the end of December. So I made it even harder to give double this year. And I'm telling you this to hold myself accountable, but I want you to know where my heart is, because another thing that I heard this week, it was by Sean Whalen, and I know Fred's in the Lion's Den, and some of you follow Sean Whalen. Whalen said, he does this Q&A thing. And the question was, what coaching group should I be in, Sean? And Sean said, you should be in the group that the leaders are doing what you want to be doing. Right? You should be in the group that the leaders are doing what you want to be doing, that they're succeeding the way that you want to succeed. So I want you to know what my heart is for 2023, and that's to double my giving. So if you're in this group, hopefully you have a heart of giving. And I believe that if we give because we're going to change the world. Right? So that's what my goal is. Yeah, I've got some other goals, business related, health related. I'm going to run the Spartan race up here in May. If anybody wants to come up to Montana. So I've got a lot of other goals, but my biggest glaring goal is to double my giving. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions and we'll go from there. I'll let Rod buy you a couple of times and have our usual comments from Rod. And Rachel, if you want to prep up, I'll let you go after Rod.
Hey, I'm ready. Jim, way to go. I have to say, I never know what we're going to get when we come up with the topics, but get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you delivered. So discipline should make us uncomfortable at first, but like you said, it does get easier. A couple of things that I want to highlight that you said, and it's once you get comfortable being uncomfortable through discipline, you can expect the unexpected. You know, that those things happen because they're due to happen. And it's one of those really interesting things. The more you do it, the more you see the universe aligning in your favor because of these things. And it's inexplicable, it's unexplainable, but it's there. It's reality. And I just think it's fascinating. I do want to say one other thing too, and that's you can't be disciplined in only one area. You know, I see this a lot of times, especially you can see athletes and that sort of thing. If they're disciplined on the field or on the court, but their personal life isn't disciplined, it doesn't matter. Your discipline has to go across all areas. You should be as disciplined with your relationships, your personal relationships, your family relationships, your employee relationships, your business and social relationships as you are with your physical and mental and spiritual and what you want to do with business. So I just encourage you, you can't just focus on one thing. That discipline needs to cross all the things. Take that from the oldest guy on the call tonight, okay? And the other thing I'm going to say is I look at this group and what we're doing, and I'm going to use the example that happened today. Jim and I were having a conversation about our high schoolers, and I've got a couple of kids in there that, I mean, they're savvy. These are good kids. They've got a lot on the ball. They're not lacking anything in their lives that I know of, right? They might have a backstory, but a couple of them just aren't doing the work. They're good talking, you know, they can talk about it, but they're not doing it. And they understand it, but they're not applying it. And Jim said, well, you know, that's it. The time's up. Give them the grade they deserve. They failed, right? Well, I don't want anyone to fail. That's my heart is I don't want anyone to fail. If I'm a teacher, if I'm a mentor, I'm taking it personally. I won't give up. I'm going to pound. I'm going to drive. I'm going to do what's necessary. And I told Jim, I said, I don't want them to get a good grade. I want them to do the work. I want them to do the work because I know what the reward is going to be if they do the work. If they put in that discipline, I know what they're going to get out of it in the long term. And so I want them to do the work, and I'm going to make them do the work. And that's kind of where I'm at with this group of people. You're adults, and it's a whole different ball game. You know, these are people who want to be here. They're not sitting in school and they have to take an elective, and this looked like a decent thing to do. You're here because you want to be here and you want to get something out of it. And by golly and by God, I want to deliver. I want to give and give and give until you get what I have and you get inspired by what is it and inspired me in the past, and you can move forward with one little nugget here and one little nugget there and move the dial until you get it. And if we have to do more contests or whatever to get you to do the work, to get you to apply this stuff, raise your hand and let us know, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to deliver. We're here to inspire you. We're here to show you that, yes, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. And I want you to follow us. I want you literally to follow us because I know what it will do for you. I know what it'll do for your relationships. I know what it'll do for your life. I know what it'll do for your businesses. So can you tell you inspired me tonight, Jim?
Yeah,
there you go.
Good job, Rod. Rod, but
turn it
by
back
the
to
way,
Rachel.
Rod, how many years have you been married?
33.
33 years Rod's been married, okay? I will tell you that I envy Rod and his marriage of 33 years. He has date night every Friday night. Don't call Rod Friday night because he's on date night, right? We all have something that we've applied that discipline to, and we're enjoying the fruits of that, right? So Rod, kudos to you for 33 years and your consistency on date night. I know not to call on Fridays. Love it. Rachel, what do you got?
All right. I love
You're mute. Rachel, you're muted.
shit.
I
Sorry.
know. No, it's okay. Start
One
over.
more time. Okay.
Start over.
75 hard was huge for me. I did it for the first time like 2 or 3 years ago, and this is my third time through. And I noticed initially that I was really lacking discipline and consistent discipline. That was a huge problem for me, that I was a college athlete and I used to have this amazing discipline and consistency, and I was lacking it. So that was a game changer, and it made me a better version of myself. Not just for like internal positive self-talk, but a better parent, a better business owner, a better friend, a better partner, a better sister, a better daughter. It was like every area of my life. So I agree. It's not a weight loss thing. It's a lifestyle shift. And I don't like being off program. As much as I take advantage of those few days every year that I'm not on program to let my hair down or whatever, I kind of regret it at the same time, because I'm just a happier, better version when I'm on it. So that applies to, I think, a lot of you guys. Discipline and consistency is the most important thing, I think, as being, at the top of my game. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, so my daughter's 12, my son is 9. They are absolutely learning these habits by watching me do it as well. And Jim, we should talk more about creating a version of 75 hard for them, because it's not realistic, like a gallon of water at their age or 2 45-minute workouts. Like that's not like with their other sports and their homework and other stuff, but there should be a way that we can create that for them. So I would love to, kind of brainstorm that together.
Yeah. I see something's in the works.
Yes. And with the year ahead, I agree that this community is very important to continue to fill our cups of motivation and inspiration and learn from each other and be inspired from each other every week. I know I need that, because a lot of times being an entrepreneur, you need that community to grow from and be inspired from. So, I hope that Jim and Rod and I inspire you guys as much as, you bring a lot to the table, and engage with us on social media. I mean, I'm checking Instagram all the time. I know we email you guys all the time. Feel free to email us back. Like, I check it all the time. So, don't be shy. If you want to like send out questions in advance of this call, or following this call, or something that you really want to talk about, I want the community to be engaged and really grow together over the year ahead.
Rachel, thanks. And by the way, Rachel's been joining our calls the last couple months more often. Rachel, in my mind, what I know about her, has a strong work ethic and discipline to do an incredible job for her clients. And I've always seen her as that person, to the point where when I refer Rachel to somebody, I know she's going to get the job done because she has the discipline that I've seen in her own craft. Right. So great job, Rachel. And I appreciate that about you. I know you have that skill. Couple other points here. By the way, we are not here to reinvent the wheel. Okay. These things that we talk about, you can pick up. That's why we've got the library. Go read the books. You can cancel your membership here and just go read the books and know what we know basically without, I don't know, 30 or 40 years of actual business experience. But we're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to share with you our own mistakes, our own challenges, and how we overcame them. We're here to have community. We're here to point out some of the significant things that we've learned, right? And remind you of the important things that you can continue doing to find your success and to get further down the road, and really to hold you accountable. And that's why I'm bringing up discipline, the fact that I'm going to talk about it all year. Matter of fact, if you want to hear Andy Frisella's version of what I just talked about tonight, go to episode number 450, played earlier this week. He's way more graceful in saying it all than I was, with a few more explicitives, right? And that's just Andy. But Andy's not here. And I think it's important that I tell you what I've thought about this week and how it applied to me and how I've put all those pieces together into what I'm doing. And I'm going to close with this thought. If we don't have any questions, we're going to close all together. What you did 90 days ago, you're seeing the rewards today. So in other words, what you start doing right now, you're going to see those rewards in 90 days or sooner. I promise you. So jump on the discipline to achieve your goals. Start working the programs. If it's getting healthier, get in the gym tomorrow, go to the grocery store, get some healthier food, right? If it's, hey, I want to get over this business hurdle, then reach out to us. We're here to help you. I'm so transparent moment. I'm disappointed in myself that on December 7th, I lost the discipline until yesterday, right? Because I'm going, well, 90 days from now, I'm going to be living what I just went through over the Christmas holiday, eating cake and ice cream and cookies and junk food and too much wine at night, right? I don't want my March to look like that. So I'm going to have to make up for some lost ground. But I will tell you that what you do now, you will see in 90 days. And what's amazing about that is how fast time goes by. And I'm going to use a quick example because Fred's on the call and we texted about it earlier. If anybody knows the country artist Zimmerman, Fred Castro told me about Zimmerman, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. Fred, what was it?
Yeah, so right as the pandemic was kicking off, this kid recorded one song.
Yeah.
And then you can see where he's at now. He's literally exploded. But
yeah, like 20 million downloads of his latest song he just played for in Times Square for New Year's Eve, right? For that whole TV thing. The point I want to make about this is it feels like Fred told me about this kid yesterday. Fred launched his clothing line, Y.E.S. He sent me some great stuff, and I was excited for him. And, hey, whatever I can do to help type thing. He says, oh, we got this kid Zimmerman. He's all in. He's a rising star. It feels like it was yesterday, but it wasn't, because time goes by that fast. And I guarantee you that kid worked his tail off to be where he's at today, because time is a flash.
So one of the things I want to add, I don't know if on the Y.E.S Instagram page, I posted today, this is what happens when you're all in, so I even look at the apparel business I started. We went through our ebbs and flows, and there's times that we're pushing it really hard and we're constantly posting and gaining traction and doing all the right things. But this kid never let off the gas, and like one thing led to another. Now he's touring with Morgan Wallen, who's the #1 country artist as of today, sold out. He's on world tour with them starting in January, obviously. But I was texting him this morning, and it's just unreal. We're going back and forth that, him keeping his foot on the gas and the ebbs and flows. And we talked a few months ago, and he goes, Fred, it's not all it's, cracked up to be. He goes, I went from just being me and my buddy writing music to now I have 16 people that work for me. I'm having a hard time keeping a photographer. I have a guy I really like, and he's going through all the business trials and tribulations, but he doesn't quit. And you want to talk about somebody that's getting comfortable or is comfortable being uncomfortable. He doesn't have that in him. He just goes and he just goes and goes. And like, I had a meeting when things started to get kind of serious with his record label and his management team. And it was what are we going to do with your brand? What is Y.E.S plans? And I go, well, I don't have Nike money and Ariat and all these big companies, or Carhartt, whoever it is. And that's what they want, because they're big league guys. So I said, hey, we did this, it was fun. And if there's a place for us, great. If there's not, my number one concern is obviously his career and him getting to go where he wants to go. But I had my reservations. I go, he's a young kid, and but he was willing to be vulnerable. He sang in my backyard. I played the guitar. He's singing. He had been in the studio. It wasn't perfect, but he had everybody crying. He grabbed his girlfriends that I wrote this song for, and they're dancing, and the whole place is like in tears, grabbing their wives, just this a moment that he's capturing. But I have the most crazy respect for him, because he doesn't let off, willing to get uncomfortable, just keeps going. And you can see his whole image start to mold and change and become more professional. And I've been reflecting on that quite a bit lately, because I'm like, that's just unreal. And like you said, to your point, seems like it was yesterday. It's been 3 years. 3 years isn't a long time, but that discipline, going with the ebbs and flows, just dealing with it, and look where he's at today. But we all have that power. I've seen it in my own personal career, where there's times I'm just pedal to the metal. Sometimes I try to do it with a little bit more grace now that I'm older, because when I was younger, it was assholes and elbows, and whatever had to get done got done. And then, unfortunately, you make a little bit of a mess behind you. Sometimes you hurt families' feelings, wives, kids. But, so I try to do it a little bit more balanced, a little bit more gracefully. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, sometimes they sound like excuses. So it's these meetings that we have to help each other get through and have a better balanced understanding. Because, like Sean Whalen says, balance is, there is no balance. You're either going for your goal or not. But
what a great example of discipline of Zimmerman and what he's done. Fred, thank you for sharing that, because no greater example than somebody who just downloaded 20 million of one song. So anybody else tonight? Question, thoughts, accountability? All right.
I have one thing. Oh,
go ahead, Rachel.
Okay. So blame this on my day job, but at the beginning of every year, I do a new personal brand mood board. And that helps me visualize. I normally put some like adjectives on there too, but also visuals, because I'm a visual person, of what I kind of want to visualize and manifest in the year ahead. So if you haven't gotten into the habit of doing that, I highly recommend it. I'm happy to share mine if anybody wants to see it, or we can all share. We can post them on Instagram if you guys want to be that public with it, or just internally. Just throwing it out there. Your personal brand is really important as you're selling your business, you're selling yourself, you're, creating the life that you want, and being purposeful about it. It's nice to put those things down on paper.
Really, really good point. And by the way, what better personal brand than to be healthy and strong and fit and leading by example? So, Taylor, you got a question?
Well, maybe it's not so much a question. I had a little bit of a revelation as you were talking. So first of all, Jim, thank you so much for that talk. I was just telling my dad today on the phone, every 1776 Syndicate call and Y.E.S Syndicate call that I get on, I'm just so happy that I do, and so inspired. So talking about discipline, I just hope that everybody that's here continues to show up here, because there's always a nugget. And along those lines, I was just thinking about the ways that my parents taught me self-discipline at a young age. And I was thinking, and I'll try not to babble because I know we have to go soon, but I was just thinking about how when we were growing up, during a large chunk of my formative years, my parents observed and practiced Orthodox Judaism. And so we have a pretty solid knowledge of the New Testament in the Bible, the Old Testament, in the Bible. And, over and over, God gives the commandment, like, write this on the doorpost of your house, put it on your head, like, fasten it to your shoes, teach your children, tell your children. And I think that is it's because he knows, like, that's the discipline that we have to have if we are going to succeed and if we are going to reach our goals. But the thing that I really wanted to mention, and just maybe it'll, because it helped me as you were talking, and maybe it'll help somebody else, but is I was thinking about when I've talked a little bit about how I danced my whole life, classical ballet. And there were some times where I was lacking, maybe not the discipline, but motivation. And I remember my dad saying one particular time we were supposed to do this performance, and it was an optional one. And I had been putting in a lot of hours every week. I was tired. It was summertime. I wanted to take a break. And my dad said, you know what? You never know what opportunity will come when you are committed. And so my takeaway tonight is that discipline brings opportunity. And it actually did. So we performed that. I went ahead and I followed my dad's advice. I performed and I actually got an offer to model. From that performance, somebody offered to have me in their studio. She was a painter. And it was just a really, it led to a really neat experience, honestly. So, and that has happened, many times I can think of throughout my life where it wasn't necessarily me, but usually, some wisdom Rod Kuntz imparted. I just wanted to share that. I'll stop now.
Thank you for sharing that. And you know and Rod kind of touched on that as well. It's so important to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities. And that readiness comes from your discipline and knowing exactly what it is you're going after, right? Because otherwise, we're not going to be ready. We're not going to answer those phone calls. We're not going to be able to do that extra performance or pick up that phone call or spend an extra hour in the office. So all these things make a difference, but they come from having the discipline to put these things in place. I'm going to leave with this last story and then we're going to wrap it. Thank you for your attention tonight. It's a little bit of a brag on my wife, but it's some advice as you start thinking about your discipline. Okay. Now, my wife started a retail business online and she was enjoying it. But what she was enjoying more was the marketing aspects of that business, right? So she started trying to do more of that. Well, she landed a big client last week, and tomorrow's her first day with that client. I'm so proud of her. But the important part about landing that client, and this goes to the discipline portion, she knew exactly what she wanted. She had a couple small clients that came to her, school parents and this and that needed little things. Nothing that she was really excited about. But when she saw this company that was looking for marketing help, and she said, I like that company. I like what they stand for. I like who they are. I like what they do. She pursued that because she knew exactly what she wanted. She pursued it and got the job, right? She got the opportunity. So as you're thinking about your discipline and what you're going to pursue, know that it's possible. Be very clear with your goals and specific. And let's spend the year holding each other accountable to what those things are, right? So I look forward to Rod's call next week. Rod, do you know the title or what you're speaking on?
Yes, I do. Little nugget I picked up in the military: maximum utilization of available resources.
Nice. Perfect topic following this week. Look, as Rachel suggested, we're here for you. If you need us, reach out. We have Rod and I are recording a podcast or two a week. You can find it on the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate YouTube channel, or you can find it on all the major podcast channels. And it's under The Answer Is Yes, which is my everyday podcast. And you'll see the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate logo for the shows that we're doing together. And we're throwing all kinds of little nuggets on there. So look, watch us ramp up this business. I'm looking at how many people are on the call tonight. We have about 20 more members that don't make the calls. We're not going to slow down. A year ago, we wondered if we'd have one member, right? Now we've got a bunch. In a year from now, it'll be interesting to see where we're at. And I hope that everybody's still here for that. And everybody's created the discipline and they're achieving their goals and they're sharing their stories. So thanks for being here tonight. See you next week.
Thank you all. Good night.